Hi, welcome to the poster presentation titled Building a Multi-State Collaboration and Transition Leadership. My name is Kendra Williams-Diem and I am from the University of Oklahoma.
And I am Suzanne Kuharczyk from the University of Arkansas.
And we are just going to briefly talk through our presentation today and the collaboration that we have between the two universities. In 2020, we received a grant, a 325D collaboration grant between the two universities. The purpose was to recruit, train, and graduate 10 highly qualified doctoral students with specific knowledge in transition and how to apply transition in rural environments. And so the two universities of the University of Arkansas and the University of Oklahoma made a really nice partnership to be able to provide this. So we're going to give a brief overview and then talk about the program and then also talk about how the collaboration process has gone. So to date, we were able to we were able to recruit and enroll all 10 scholars. And so each university has 5 scholars on their respective campuses. We have a pretty diverse group of scholars in terms of ethnicity, also in terms of age, in terms of background experiences. Most of those scholars are from their respective states, but we also had scholars move from a good distance across the country to relocate to start the PhD program.
Yeah. And the scholar supports are developed across universities and within each university to ensure that scholars are leaving us with competencies as future faculty and researchers in the field, as in special education, and with a focus on transition services. Each year, we really focus on an element of that. So in one year, we are working on really developing their teaching skills, and another research, and then the third service, while they are understanding the rich research around transition services and future needs for research and teaching and preparation of future special educators in the field. In terms of scholar supports that we are supporting across our universities and together, we have some joint coursework and projects that we do. So we in both universities have graduate certificates in transition services. And within those graduate certificates, we have specific coursework that was nicely able to be tied together. So University of Oklahoma has specific strengths in assessment, in self-determination, and other aspects of transition. And University of Arkansas has other strengths in terms of really focusing on students with the most intensive support needs, in legal aspects, and so on. So we have been able to provide opportunities for students across the universities. As example, in both Dr. Williams-Diem's and my course in the spring, scholars were paired together across the universities and created practitioner papers focused on students with high support needs related to transition, as one example. Faculty are involved in joint research together and in publications, and are pulling students from across universities to support that. So we are working with scholars from University of Oklahoma and vice versa. We have travel support for all of our scholars to attend joint conferences so that they can be learning together, be learning with faculty from both universities, and obviously also learning from the broader field. That, of course, has been constrained under COVID, and those travel monies were shifted to provide opportunities more virtually for scholars. So for example, in January, we had Dan Habib come virtually and present to scholars focused on transition and his work related to that. And then the earlier doctoral seminar in the fall, we had scholars in special education at different stages of their careers, assistant, associate, and full professor, taking from other universities, taking our scholars through kind of what their journeys were. So those were ways that we continue to provide supports and scholars, although we weren't able to travel. those scholars have been attending those conferences virtually. We have retreats planned every summer. So this summer we are to travel to Oklahoma, and we will talk about ways that COVID has impacted that. We will be looking at a retreat in Fayetteville next year, where we are getting together in the summers and really giving some targeted, focused reflection and opportunities for scholars to work together and with faculty across universities. Scholars meet weekly. They have their own meetings. We create a little bit of structure for that in terms of what we would like them to be attending to. But we want them to be really building relationships together as future collaborators, and then seeking us in terms of faculty for support as needed. I mentioned the external panels that we've done with researchers and leaders in the field that we did in the fall and the spring. And we've also targeted mentors both outside and inside our universities, depending on what the scholar interests are as they are emerging and continuing to grow, and we'll continue to do that.
Yeah, and a lot of, just to add on to what Suzanne said, and matching scholars with mentors, both internally and externally to their universities, but also looking at some demographic factors that may be unique to those scholars and matching them with like mentors, both internally and externally.
Very important.
So I think in some of the takeaways, we say collaboration is hard. It takes extra effort to collaborate. And then when you just are kind of partly still in a global pandemic, COVID has made all of those efforts to collaborate even more difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And so, of course, one of the biggest things is it feels like everything we planned to do together has been immediately moved to a Zoom platform. And so one of those, on some ways it's great. We're still able to see each other and talk to each other and have real-time collaboration. It's not the same as when you're actually in a room sharing coffee, talking about things and those sorts of things. And so a lot of the projects that we have had our scholars do have had extra degrees of uncertainty, extra degrees of just touching in needed. For example, we talked about the paper, and so all students were assigned a partner between the two universities of the University of Arkansas and the University of Oklahoma to write a paper together. And, we talk about how it's easy to collaborate with our colleagues that we like. But sometimes when you're matched to someone that you've never actually met face to face, a lot of those working styles come to a head really quickly. And so we spent a lot of time, mentoring students, which of course we had planned anyway, but a lot of it's working through that communication that had we been able to be in a face-to-face setting ever and actually been around each other in person, that you just would have had a deeper level of relationship before some of those collaborations took place. Suzanne also mentioned traveling. And so, of course, all this past year, conferences have been online in a virtual setting. And so we have two universities that are actually fairly close together. It's only about a 3.5, 4-hour drive between the two universities. And due to travel restrictions, we can't even seem to bridge those 4-hour driving distance. The retreat was originally planned for this summer in a neutral location where both universities would come and travel together. However, again, due to travel restrictions that we have at the University of Oklahoma, we can't travel. And so even though it was fully supported on a grant project, it wasn't deemed essential travel by the university. And so kind of rearrange things a little bit. Those at the University of Arkansas are coming to Oklahoma this summer, and we're going to go to Arkansas next summer. It's been an interesting year for everyone.
Yeah, and if I'll add that, and it goes to the next point in terms of that Zoom collaboration and all of that. We knew that we would have a lot of online collaboration needs, but we didn't obviously anticipate that those expectations of the project would be additive, that all of our collaboration, so many courses, that the scholars would be inundated with, and us as faculty as well, with Zoom in all the aspects of our lives. So what was supposed to be a project specific kind of collaboration and that need for online support, online engagement and Zoom meetings and so on. And we got a Zoom account before anybody else did, COVID related, for this project. And
Yeah.
then became, not only are you doing this for this project, but you're doing it for the rest of your life, your meetings with your family and so on. And that became very challenging because, as we all have learned, there is a lot of just overwhelmingness when it comes to that much online communication. So that's been challenging and has required us to be very planful and strategic, and being careful not to be making sure that when we do plan collaboration, that is very necessary, and there's a clear need and there's a clear purpose, and sometimes that purpose is to create relationship, and to give space for all of that, and knowing that that needs to happen as well. Yeah, we've also had scholars, those particularly who have moved out of state, who have really struggled in terms of building relationships just in their communities. So where most doctoral programs, you really benefit from that cohort and that support for those scholars who weren't able to build those relationships even within the communities within which they moved to. It's been challenging just in terms of mental health and supporting that in ways that probably wouldn't have been as necessary if not specific to COVID.
Yeah, we've experienced the same thing, especially the scholars who moved to start this program. It's been that much harder to feel ingrained and enmeshed in part of it, especially with universities not allowing individuals to come into the office. And so even, we talk about not being able to build all the relationships across the two universities, but it's been equally hard just building the relationships within the scholars from the same university, because again, they're not allowed to be in the same room at the same time and have those conversations. So we are definitely looking forward to the next year of the partnership. We're really excited about the way everything's going. All of our students submitted proposals to the upcoming let me start over. The upcoming CEC DCBT conference, which is in Myrtle Beach this October. And so just about all of our students had their proposals accepted. We also have students who have had proposals accepted at other conferences in the fall, and as well as proposals submitted for conferences we don't know about. And so definitely looking forward to that travel time, that time to be together, and that time for this collaboration to really kind of step up and be what we intended it to be in a pre-pandemic world.
Yeah. And I do think those bi-monthly faculty meetings have been really instrumental in helping us to stay committed to that focus and to create the flexibility or adapt in ways that we've needed to, as we've needed to the challenges that COVID specifically has created. One of those things that we have really had to attend to is that not only were we going through COVID, but both universities decided to just completely dismantle two important systems. At OU, that was their financial system, and at U of A, that was the human resource system, which obviously are very tied together. And those created massive disruptions within our universities, as well as for the project, and making sure that we were attending to the budget needs and making sure that those were as expected. We are checking in on those budgets together, and I think that's going well, particularly because we're in communication and just staying abreast of those and making sure that we are keeping our project officer informed about the way that the systems are impacting our ability to do that work.
All right, well, we have our contact names and email addresses down there. We also have two other colleagues that are included, Dr. Peggy Whitby and Dr. Mallory Deerdorf. And so they are definitely available for any questions as well. But it's been a really fun project, and we are definitely excited to see how it goes.
Absolutely.